Welcome to Your Awakening, a collection of life stories told by heart-centered, passionate women on a mission to live our truth. We hope you gain peace and strength through each conversation, as together we will raise the vibration of the world, one journey at a time. Hey everyone, I am so excited to have my dear soul sister, Ange Atkinson, joining us today on this Awake series. We're going to focus in today on self-love, coming into knowing and honoring the body in which we were all gifted. So, without further ado, Ange is energy healer, worker, yogi, teacher, what am I missing? Embodied Love Movement teacher, owner, creator, founder of B.R.A.V.E. It's an amazing podcast. What else? What's happening? What did I leave out?
Hey, Jill.
I left out.
I feel like you hit most of them. Yeah. I run a podcast and org for educators to be their best and brave self. And as Jill said, I am a facilitator and a trainer for an organization called the Embody Love Movement, which is all about teaching women and girls to come home to their bodies and feel fully embodied in love, and change the conversation around women and girls and how we speak to ourselves and to each other about our bodies.
Love. That's some juiciness all in that.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm a healer, and I just do all kinds of fun things.
So great. I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And thank you for joining us. This is going to be a fun topic. So let's dive in. And you and I always talk a lot about inner child, remembering our child, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old self. I know I keep a picture of my 3-year-old self in my journal. I know you have multiple pictures. So touch on that a little bit. How is touching into that part of yourself so critical to your daily life now?
Yes. So touching into my inner little girl, my little inner Angie, who is just completely carefree and loving and fierce and loves life and is extremely radiant and just fierce and really sassy. Tapping into that version of me before I was really ingrained into any sort of false ideas of who I am or love or beauty or anything like that. Because as we get older, we're steeped into the beliefs of society and schools and our parents, and if you're involved in any sort of religion, all things that are not your own. And so we begin to see the world and ourselves through this filter. And so going back to that inner you, that little you, will bring you back to your divine light, your soul, your intuition. And as Jill said, I keep several. I have them around to remind me to speak kindly to myself, because
where do you keep them all at? There's journal. Y'all, she has them pinned everywhere, and it's the cutest picture too, because it's a side wink. It's
yes.
Pledge Ange.
Yeah. And I do this because sometimes I lose them. I actually cannot find the one that Jill is talking about right now. So the one I have right now is, if you can see it.
That's
it's
a
me.
Fun one.
Yeah, I'm just playing with a toy. And so I keep one typically by my bedside so that I can tap into her in the mornings or, in the evenings. I take one with me in my purse. It's not necessarily visually with me, but that energy is with me always. And then I'll have one in my journal or maybe in my car or something like that. So they're just kind of around so that I have access to them. Because if I'm ever having a really hard day or a struggle to get out of any negative self-talk, or I'm really in my mind and not tapped into my heart or my soul, then I can have access to that picture. That is a tool that will bring me back into remembering, my own divinity, my own love, remembering to be kind and loving to myself, and stepping into all of those tools, as opposed to when I'm having a moment like all humans do, where maybe you're thinking something negative about like who you are or how you be or how you look. It's not about how we look. It's
Mhm.
what we're embodying from the inside out.
Love. So, how is, because you speak on it's not how we look. And I think that that's like key to, some people's journeys. And we live in a complete social media world. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
probably can't even name all the social media handles, this, Twitter, that. Like, there's so much going on, and it's all like causing a reactive. It's right in the palm of our hand to either get positive affirmation or negative affirmation, depending on like what you're looking at. So I know you do a lot of, I know you've worked with kids. You're a camp director
Mm-hmm.
um, for, it was a girls' summer
Yes.
camp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that play a role? Like, how do you segue that into like your teaching platform now?
So as you were saying, like it's, or I like to say, it's like how I be, how I am, how I show up in the world, as opposed to what's on the outside. And there's definitely this like beauty revolution, and kids can speak a lot about it, and they can say to you all day long, like, it's what is on the inside that matters. And I know that they know that that's true. And we have to practice the tools ourselves, and also give these to kids, of how to actually do those things. So how to speak to yourself with self-compassion, how to walk yourself through moments when you feel less than, or you feel not worthy, because it's a whole healing process. And so there is like trying to change the conversation with kids around, yes, it's what's on the inside that matters. And there's the reality of we have to do the work, which might involve, maybe it's a daily meditation practice, or as I have those pictures. It's in the moments when you are feeling just absolutely not good about yourself. When you're in the moment of being in a
It's a
belief.
trigger. It's like it's
Yeah.
a trigger. You have something that is
Yes.
causing you to react, and it's
Hmm.
triggering you to think that instead of responding. And
Yes.
so, yeah, that's so
Yes.
good. And then the other thing you're talking about is like the journey. And so how did all of this play into your life, right? So like teen, adolescent, reaching womanhood, like did you have struggles? Like what was your journey to this place of
Mm.
your embodiment that you are?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I had all kinds of struggles, like from being a young kid to through being a teenager up through my 20s. And then I continue into this healing process now. It's not like you get to a process, a time when you're complete. That's not the goal.
Well,
And
that's a good key to be remembering of we are gifted these bodies, right? And we're all just
yes.
spiritual beings for this
Mhm.
time period. So like, yes, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. So um my healing journey really didn't start until I was in my 20s. But when I look back on when I started to disconnect from that like divine love, and remembering that of who I am, and disconnecting from my body, was starting about 9. I very specifically remember being in 4th grade, and I had a substitute teacher. I had short hair at the time. I specifically remember I got my hair cut like one of the Olympic gymnasts during the Summer Olympics. Like, I thought she was the coolest person ever. Got my hair cut like her. And so the substitute from the back thought I was a boy, and addressed me as young man. And like, I remember that moment, like specifically remember that moment. I can remember like what it smelled like. I can remember what the man looked like. I can remember everybody around me. And I can remember like instantly feeling shame. and just like disconnecting from me. And from there, from that point, really started to feel like I had to like make up for being feminine. Like I created this belief based on that experience, because I was feeling shame that I was not feminine. So like I say it that way because like in your healing journey, I have to take responsibility for the belief that I created, that story that I created. When in reality, what happened is like 9-year-olds pretty much look androgynous, and this man who just didn't pay attention called me a little boy. And so it was like a core wound, and yet like I can go back and heal the story around it. And so through that kind of like carried up through my teenage years, that wounding, and it basically like continued to re-wound me because I had the story running. Like I had the belief running that I was not feminine enough, which then turned into like I am not enough, which then turned into like I'm bad, I'm a bad person. So that's a lot of times what will happen to many of us as we experience core wounds, and then there's shame around that. So through my teenage years, there was a lot of, again, just continuing to disconnect from my body. I'm very tall. And as a teenager, I didn't know how to embrace that. I thought it was just like not good. I would like huddle down. I would really like shrink my body. And this has to do with so many factors, right? Like there are messages within society that like women are not allowed to take up space. So then there was like that energy coming at me that I was, you know, not wanting to take up space, not wanting to be seen. And so there was kind of all these different things, different stories and wounds running that I wasn't aware of. And so I just continued to disconnect from my body, be ashamed of my body, and not understand it as like a tool to experience the world, like a tool for my soul to experience the world. And at the same time, like I didn't really like through my teenage years, I wasn't aware of any like really horrifying negative body image talk. I was an athlete. I felt pretty good about that. I, you know, never really developed any sort of eating disorder or anything like that. Food is something that I've also had to do healing around, but like on the surface, essentially, I was not somebody that had body image issues. You know, most people would be like, "Oh, she's fine. Like she feels really good." And it wasn't until I started to like get into my early to mid 20s that some other stuff started to occur within me
It's
that
such
I
a
needed to do the healing. So it
it's
was like
such a
all
layered
these,
effect,
yeah,
right?
there was
Yeah.
so much accumulation, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so basically, for me, everything kind of came to a pinnacle when I had just started graduate school. I was about 20, I think I was 24. And I started graduate school because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. So really like this body stuff then turned to me into like external validation. So there was like the wounds that I had around my body image that then morphed into like, I'm not enough. Let me just gain as much external validation as possible in order to feel worthy.
And
And
I think a lot of people do that, right? So
yeah,
it's a lot of
100%.
I'll move cities. I was a city mover.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that externally it would be, oh, I have body image issues, but I had a lot of different things that I had to do forgiveness work on. I had to give myself the self-care on. And essentially I think it rolls into parenting yourself.
Oh
Like
my gosh,
some at some
yeah.
point we get to parent ourselves, and it's exciting. You know, it doesn't, your parents can be amazing, you could have an amazing great family upbringing, but at some point in time it's the ties, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there, no matter what, there are what kind of childhood you have, there are going to be beliefs that are not yours that you take on from your parents. And so you get the opportunity to get to a point where you're conscious of them, and you then can choose, is this a belief I want to keep, or is this a belief I need to let go of? Because sometimes those beliefs are in your best interest. And so it's great to keep living them through. And then sometimes they're beliefs that no longer are going to be in your highest good, and you need to let them go. And sometimes they're not beliefs at all from your parents. They're just stuff that you decided.
Well, yeah. And you start, we start making decisions at such a young age, and you start forming all of these thoughts and like how your brain is going to be patterned. And, so you were talking about self-healing and working through old wounds. What was like a catalyst? Like if there's one thing that, or, three things that people that are out there watching, like what was just a core, was it forgiveness? Was it meditation? Because there's all these tools. And I think that I say this a lot, like every body, each of us is different. So what works for me might not work for you or whatever. So like, you got to find your niche, like it's like gathering, right? Gather all these tools and pick them out. So like, what was your toolbox?
I'd say there's two, and one is right along the lines of what you're saying, and that is to develop your intuition, which involves going back to tapping into your own little girl. For me, like, she's my intuition, and learning to listen to that power within you, your own intuition, is going to guide you on your healing path, because there is so much out there, and not all of it is for you. So, and when you are somebody that lives in, or did live in, I'm not enough, then you probably are somebody that is a perfectionist or a recovering perfectionist. And so then when you're in the self-help, the healing world, you might start to be a perfectionist within self-help and self-healing. And then you might be like, I have to do all of these things. You do not have to do all of those things.
That's me.
Right?
It's like, okay, so, and then I'll meditate, and then I'll do this, and that's just not, it's become, we've modernized, right? So many assets and tools from civilizations well past our being. And it's just like, you gotta just get still. I think that's really a big key for me personally.
Yeah. So listen to, and try things, try them on. And then if it's not for you, that's okay. And then continue to listen to yourself over and over again. I'm like going through this right now, because I'm in the middle of like starting and expanding a business. And I just realized the other day, I was like feeling like I had to do it this way, this way, this way. And I had to take these trainings and these trainings. And then I was able to be like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm in that old pattern. And so that old pattern, it'll show up whether it's within your body, your heart, how you feel about yourself, or in teaching or in business. Like, you just have to practice using your intuition to know which way you need to go. For me specifically is been a movement. So embodied practices like yoga. So that's been, for me, has helped me relearn my body, and relearn how to connect to my body as a tool for my soul to experience the world. It's allowed me to re-experience energy and emotions, and reframe so many parts of my life. And that's then when I would say, I would go back to, is that for you? Listen to your intuition first. Yoga may be something that just does not work for your body. There are other movement practices out there that could work, or it could be something completely different. More than likely, it's going to be several different things that kind of create a holistic picture, and they're going to morph and change throughout your life.
Yeah. I think this is an interesting segue of like our yin and yang style of energy too, because so Angie, you've done a lot of the yoga, the breath work, like that's been your core and helping you with your awakening and enlightening you further. For me, I'm a weightlifter. Like I get in the gym, I lift heavy weights. I'm like in there deadlifting with the bros, you know, and it's like that for me, I've tried on yoga. I've tried it on, but in my how I like need to release energy, that's where I find it. You know, it's in the weight room, and I use yoga. I have found like the restorative, the yin yogas, the breath work, the slow down, the that style works for me. The pushing and the poses that are like and you're shake, you know, that didn't work for me. So like I guess this just opens up like it's okay. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
go slam some weights, go do it. If you want to do Pilates, if you want to get on that spin bike and ride it into next year, like do whatever lights your fire up, but as long as you're moving. You can just walk. You can walk every morning and like move the energy. I think it's just
Mm-hmm.
so key. And bringing in, I guess we can get on like the through movement, this is going to open up a whole new level of like vibration for you and like what you can then bring in to your world. So like Angie, you talked a lot about when you're in the space of you're not enough and you're shrinking down, like your entire heart center is closed off from allowing any of the goodness, any of those, the right vibe humans to come into your life. So how have you found now, like heart opened, you're calling in a higher vibe of human to enter into your life? Do you want to talk on that like a little bit, like that journey
Sure.
of
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So, you know, all these movement practices, number one, are coming from that like intuitive place. They're coming from a place of I am doing this for me and not I'm like doing this because I have to prove anything. And so when you come at it from that perspective, as Jill said, it's going to expand your energy, going to change how you experience the world. I've told the story before of like I used to in yoga, like if I do like poses where I have to hold them for a long time because it encourages me to work on my mental game. So the fears that come up, the voices that come up, I get to be with them and just watch them go by. But I used to, like, if I was holding a pose and my leg would start shaking, then I used to make that mean I'm not enough, right? I used to make that mean that I'm not enough. And through yoga, I was able to reframe that to understand like my leg shaking is energy. And energy in yoga is called prana. And prana is your life force, it's your light. And so when I understood that, and then I would still pull out of it, I understood that I was pulling out and pulling away from my light, that I was actually more afraid of my light and my heart, my love, all of those things. I was more afraid of that than I was of not being enough. I just misunderstood the messages. And so that's when I learned how to kind of like really expand. And then as that lesson has expanded within my body, then different experiences and people have showed up in my life. So from like changes in friendships, soul tribe, you know, Jill is a great example of a soul sister who calls me forward. Um, so surrounding myself with more and more people like that. And I've also just brought into my space more and more teachers, whether they're like friends that are teachers or mentors that are teachers. I remember not like my first real like I feel like breakdown that I mentioned when like in graduate school, but my second one that kind of like came around right before I turned 30. It felt really similar, but I caught it before I had gone all the way into like full on breakdown. And I said, like, I was just like walking through my house one day and I stopped and I started crying because I was having thoughts that I didn't enjoy, you know, about me not being good enough. I was feeling depressed, also feeling anxiety, and just kind of was like, F it, and said, like, okay, God, I am ready for my spiritual teachers. And if you say something like that, be ready, because is like one after the other, after the other, after the other, just like showed up in my life, and they continue to do so. That was like 2 years ago, and they continue to do so, and it blows my mind. So
Because
there's
you were
like,
ready. You were ready.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you're expanding your energy with movement. You're changing your emotional state. You're changing how you experience the world, right? I was talking about like I was able to reframe how I experience my own light, and that will then change who is in your life, 100%.
Uh, and you better be ready. Like that's
Oh my
factual.
gosh.
The two sacred words, I am, is like opening the segue for universe, God, higher spirit, whatever name you want to give it, to like start working some stuff, you know? So when you are pronouncing it with I am, you're full on ready. You're taking ownership. You're going to be stepping into the space of amazing sauce. And it's calling forth, like you talked on Soul Tribe. You hear it a lot, and it's a lot out there of like, oh, find your tribe and da-da-da. But like, this is the no bullshit. The people that you can call at midnight, 3 a.m, or there, it's mentorship. Like, okay, I'm planning for this workshop, or okay, I have interview, I have XYZ, my kid's doing this, like whatever it might be. It's like, it's going to be somebody that's just no judgment and full belief in you. So like speak
Mm.
on creating that tribe, partnership, why it is so important. And what else is also important is cutting the ties. If the vibration level of current groups of friends, and there's studies, you can read a lot of things about, you are the majority of the top 5 people you hang around. That can be a whole other topic, but you know what that means. Like, it's not easy sometimes to cut loose energies not serving you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, definitely. I learned recently a phrase that I love, which is really like connected to what you were saying, and it's called spiritual consent. And so it's the people in your life that you have spiritual consent with are the people in your life that you can go to, you know, with anything, with that love, with that acceptance, and know that they're not going to bullshit you, and they're going to call you forward, and they're going to love you through everything, your shame, all of that. And cultivating that, recognizing who can hold that space, who can call you forward is really important. So that means you're not just like dishing out all of your stuff everywhere to everyone. You are, you know, choosing who's in your life. And for me, that really started to get really like activated 2 years ago when I went to a women's retreat in California, which is where I met Jill. And I met so many women. There's like some of us that are still close. And Jill is an example of like meeting somebody that was very different from me, in a very different friendship than I was used to. That I was like, okay, I need to keep her in my life because she approaches life differently, and also is willing to call me out. And there's other people like from, not from that retreat, but through that retreat, that I have met that are in a similar vein. And they are also people like, you learn to speak in language, a different language. Like you learn, hey, can you hold space for me? And instead of just like dumping a whole bunch of stuff via text message or calling and venting, like you learn to ask, like, are you in a space where you can listen to me and just listen? Like I
uh
don't need anything,
that's like
right?
kicker, right? Because
Yeah.
that is you coming from a higher level by just
Mm-hmm.
asking, because that's not placing assumption, that's not putting your stuff on anyone else. It's asking for
Mm-hmm.
their space to withhold it. So that's huge. And on the, so you coming into my life was a different space for me to be allowed to be vulnerable and to like accept the love. Because I think we were at the retreat, and it was a intense retreat. And one of the nights, and Angie was like, Jill, do you need a hug? And I was in the space, you know, at that point in time where I was like, oh, yeah, I think I do. Like literally, I think I even was like this. Like now I'm like, come give it to me, girl. I would love a hug. But it's and that's where I so appreciate our relationship and calling in people that sometimes are the yin to your yang, because you allow me to be vulnerable and ask for love and be more heart centered, whereas up until, you know, that time I was very logical. I was very brain thought process driven.
So yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. And then like, just to add on, as an example, because I think it's so important for women to hear that, like, friendships like this, you move through stuff, and you move through your own shit. So like, it was like a year after the retreat, we had a mini reunion, and I don't think I called you once for that whole year. I think maybe we had messaged back and forth. And Joe was like, yo, why don't you call me? And I was being very avoidant. I was like, oh, let's not talk about this. Let's not talk about it. Because I wasn't really sure. And then like Jill like looked at me and was like, no, like, what's up with this? We took a walk, and
We were sitting on hammocks.
yeah.
Very peaceful space.
And but there was like the ugly cry moment where I was just like, I have this something that I just feel like, it was like this weird story, and I knew it wasn't about Jill, but I was just like crying, and I was like, I have this something where I just feel like, how could you want to be friends with me? Because I had like made up a story around who Jill was, even though like my soul knew who Jill was. I had made up a story of who like she represented in my life, and I was just like, I like my teenage self that had like friendship stuff was just like, nope, nope, I can't, I don't like, can't do it. I can't be friends with this person. This person's not gonna like me. And Jill was like, dude, got the bullshit. And then like reminded me like of her humanness, and that she is who she is, and that she's not some like I don't know, like person I was making up in my head, that she was like this like somebody kind of up on a pedestal. And she's like, if you want to just talk to me, like call me. And I was like, okay, like, and like I made the commitment to it. And we just continued to like talk through that like this last year. And there was times when I would tell her, like I would like call her and be like, okay, I was doing that thing where I didn't want to call you, and I just called you. And she's like, great, that's awesome. And so that's like, it's such a wonderful like healing journey, like that part for me. And then I know Jill was talking about her side, and to know, like for me, like in that moment, to be called forward, because I was in like my old stuff, right? I was in old friendship stuff, old wounding about like women to women friendships. And that I like being in that old stuff, it's okay that I was there, and I wasn't in my best self within our friendship. So I wasn't in a loving place in our friendship. So to be called forward and then be like, okay, now I see you. Now I get you. Yeah.
And me not stepping into a vulnerable place and having the preconceived notions of like how you should build friends and how you have to be with women, and you know, you got to stand your ground and prove yourself and all of these things. And it's like, for me, cut the bullshit. I don't have to prove anything. Like, if Angie doesn't represent love, then what is, you know, then what is it? So it's like, it's allowing that love to just come in. And I think that this is so important for day-to-day life too, right? So we are encountering so many different people on a day, depending what you do, you know, and it can be a variety of different interactions. Teachers at the school, the grocery store, colleagues, and coming from a place of understanding, and that it's feedback, and you're going to get some really aggressive feedback, because you and I could have easily said, the vibe's not there, it's too hard, I don't like how I feel. And then we missed out on very amazing feedback and opportunity to up level ourselves to then bring in more abundance into our life. So speak on that like a little bit, because I know that touches, that's some juiciness, the feedback.
That feedback. Like I would say, if you are triggered, go there. Right? Like whether it's within a friendship, in one interaction, like you were saying, just in a daily interaction, go there. Pause, breathe into your body, see if you can get present, and see what's coming up. right? Because it's an old story, it's an opportunity for you to heal. And this is like the really nitty gritty work. And you're not going to be perfect at it. Like, you are totally going to have a moment where you're like, nope, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. And that's okay. Hold yourself in compassion in those moments. And when you know, as much as you can, when you are able to, go there, right? It's
Or
like
like,
facing.
know that it's okay if you don't,
Mm-hmm,
and a year later you might go there, and
mm-hmm,
journal
yeah.
about it. We both like highly
Mm-hmm,
urge, please go get a journal. Like, there is something so powerful about the heart dump, the brain dump, and you put it all there. And to look back a year later and be like, now I'm good. Like, now I
mm-hmm,
can work through this. So, like, I think that's a nice thing too to touch on, is the segues of our journeys, because
mm-hmm.
it's not all just going to be like, bam, here you go. And I wake up the next morning, sunshine,
No.
rainbows. Yeah, yeah. That's just, it's not, because again, we're humans and we're just spiritually able to live this life in this vehicle. So just knowing that it's a process and a journey, like, what are some things that help you stay on that track other than
Oh,
like the pictures, the movement?
mm-hmm.
Is there
Definitely.
affirmations?
As far as staying on, like, in the process, and knowing that it is a process, I think the biggest thing that helps me is connection and sharing with people that I have spiritual consent with. Because I when I don't do that, then I start to run into, oh, I'm crazy. Oh, I'm people other people don't experience this. There's an old story that runs in my head that I start to forget that what I'm experiencing is not unique, and that it is definitely tapped into the collective consciousness, the collective part of humanity. And so, um, whether it's sharing that, you know, speaking it out, or if I can't for whatever reason in that moment, then it's it's just kind of taking that breath, which is a step in self-compassion. You know, self-compassion has 3 steps of like mindfulness, self-kindness, and then connecting to the greater humanity. It's all of that's by Dr. Kristen Neff. She's a great person to look up. But connecting to the understanding that what you are experiencing is not unique, right? Like, yes, you're unique. You're a unique light, and your experience is connected to that. That is something greater than what's happening just inside you, is so important, right? So then that can get into a conversation of like, okay, that's really talking about spirituality, like connecting to that which is greater than us is spirituality. So then it's like, okay, if it's not talking and sharing, then what will connect me spiritually? You know, that could be for me, like, it's a lot of different things, and it's a lot of playfulness. Like, I love tarot cards. I love dance. And not like any, for me, it's not any sort of like performative or lyrical dance. Like, it's like booty shaking, let me move my body and feel really good and make really weird noises dancing, like when no one else is home, or going to a static dance. Yoga connects me spiritually. Um, Understanding that all of it is about the spiritual connection, like the soul connection to the divine, soul connection to the body. Because it's like, you know, when you're working and kind of trying to like make shifts in your life, you might look at like, okay, fitness, and then you might look at like my emotions, and then you might look at your mental game, and all of that is connected to our spiritual experience, like our spirituality. So really looking at what is going to connect you back to that which is greater than you. Which I think ties right back into like what we were talking about, your intuition. Your intuition is actually connected to like the collective consciousness, right? So your intuition, meditating, you know, coming down into my body, just simply connecting to the sound of my breath and breathing, like like putting your hands on your body and breathing, like all of those things are spiritual in their essence. So I think that's definitely.
And do you want to touch just a little bit, because I know you do some energy work. So if that talks to anyone watching, what's the power behind it? If you're new and you're like, what's that? Like, what is it? What's going on? Why?
Right. Yeah. So energy work. I do Reiki. I'm an intuitive healer, so it's not just Reiki energy, but energy work, if you've heard of it or not, is just rooted in the understanding that we live in a vibrational world. We live in an energetic world. So everything has energy. Our bodies have energy. Our emotions have energy. Our thoughts have energy. There are energetic beings walking around with us always, whether we can see them or not. And when you step into practices, whether they're a fitness practice or eating practice or meditating, you are in the process of shifting your own energy, and you are always in control of that energy that is coming into your body. And the way you experience that energy in your body is just so dynamic, and there's so many factors. There's the chakra centers in your body that you can learn about. You can learn about how like energy flows. Our organs, our bones, our muscles, everything holds energy. So they hold our emotional energy. I like to talk about, I've heard from many teachers, like emotions are energy in motion. So emotions are another tool for us to experience the world and to experience what we value in the world. And when we do not express our emotions, we just tap them down because Western society tells us to not express our emotions, then they actually get stuck in your body. And so when you're in a healing journey, when you're in a healing process, doing like movements, right, will help you do your own energy work, and then having somebody else do energy work with you can help clear out some old stuff that's no longer serving you. So it's like another step in like that holistic process. And as I'm talking, like, then if we're talking like women and divine feminine energy, then there's that of tapping into your sacral chakra, which is like your womb space, your creative center. Tapping into your sacred sensuality and sexuality will help you tap into your intuition. And like there is like a giant amount of information you can read out there about this, and there's just so much so much healing there to tap into like divine feminine energy. And to, like, when I say sacred sensuality and sexuality, like tapping into feeling things, feeling the world with your body. And so this is one of those that calls to you. Great. If it makes you a little nervous, maybe you have some work to do in other spaces before you can kind of get there. If you're not at a space yet where you can like practice feeling through the world, that's okay. We're ingrained into some really deep wounding as women around our bodies. So tapping into that feminine energy of like, and just feeling the water on your skin when you're taking a shower, turning the lights down low, and doing something like you would normally do with like very like executed energy, doing it with a slower and a softer feminine energy, like cleaning the house. You could turn the lights down low and light a bunch of candles and like make it smell really good. Like listen to your intuition. What incense do you want burning? And like move really slowly around the house and clean it. Like it's okay to slow down, right? There's like just a whole different energy to that, and knowing that like that's one part of like the divine feminine energy. There's also like the fire, the like warrior goddess energy, like, and all of it is divine feminine. So like there's times when you might want to like yell and scream and move and dance, and maybe your dancing's really big, and there might be times when it's like, yeah, slow it way down, right? Like how you like sensually dance if you want to.
And giving
What
the
are,
permission that we get
yes,
to be both. Like you get
yes,
to have all of these energies come and experience and release.
hmm,
And it's like permission.
yes. And like, I feel like everything I just said is just like the surface when it comes to energy work, or like I was saying, the divine feminine energy, like taking a bath, like all those things, like that's just the surface. And if you want to know more, like there's just so much out there. There's so many different books and podcasts and stuff. Like it's available to you. So
We can have a
yeah,
segment 2
yes,
on all of that jam sesh. So final cue, we'll wrap up. I hold values so key to how I show up on my day-to-day basis. They have been the like core to my journey and like my day-to-day. So what are your top
hmm,
that
so
you
good.
follow your mission space with?
Yes, yeah. Um, One is play. And so that's, as Jill was talking about like values, asking yourself like, okay, how am I going to show up with play today? And then reflecting like, how did I play today? Because uh, being within those values each day is where embodied change comes from. And that's different than doing it perfectly, completely different. It's just, okay, how did I show up in this value today? And if I didn't, oh, okay, that's okay. Like, what's there? Reflecting, um, because our values could be very different, or even not like contradicting, but just like maybe one day's play and one day something else. So play is one, spirituality is one for me. So that's what I was talking about, like connecting, connecting to that which is greater than me, connecting to love, and how do I bring that into my body? How do I bring that out into the world? So play, spirituality, and commitment, I'd say would be the top three. And um, I would also say like mind change. So play and spirituality tend to be ones that don't change. But I typically actually work with 5, but to name those 3, those others, like that last one or those other 3, if I'm doing 5, they might shift. Play and spirituality for me have not shifted in the last 2 years, but it's okay to like come back to your values. And like, actually, I would say you should come back to your values and reevaluate them like every 3 months, because as you move through different seasons, as you move through different parts of your life, the things that you value may change, and you're not like a stuck human tree like rooted into the ground. Like, you're a dynamic, flowing, moving, like sacred being of light. So you're going to change because you're up leveling, you're transforming. So the values that you have are going to transform, and that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, dear friend. This was so
Yeah.
good. So much
You're
good
welcome.
information for everyone. How can folks get a hold of you? How can they
Mm,
reach out? They want some energy
yeah.
work.
Want some energy work? You can follow B.R.A.V.E on Instagram. It's brave_educators, or email me, brave.educators@gmail.com. And soon will be my website, which will be braveeducators.com. It's not live yet, but it's close. So that's how you can get a hold of me. And I do everything from like trainings and workshops to healings, in person or remote, as well as coaching. So you can definitely reach out to me. I work a lot with educators, but I also work with women. So if you're a woman that is interested in changing the way that you care for yourself, changing the way that you are embodied in your life, then I am here to do that with you.
Love all of it. And you all can find more info in the credits if you want to reach out. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.